Okay, so this is my Technology and Sport Assignment 1 by Josh Morris. So what I've been looking at is technology developments in football. So to begin with, I looked at the facilities. So the developments we've made in football regarding our facilities is firstly in grass pitches. So this is in the way we ground keep after games now. Groundsmen go out and cut the grass straight away, pick up all of the pieces that have turfed up throughout the game. Then during the week, new grass would be regrown using halogen lights, so that's a technology. This is going to help the pitch to recover by putting light directly onto the grass. It's going to help it grow. So previous, probably wouldn't get things like that. People mowing the lawn straight after games. You wouldn't have the halogen lights that go over the turf. You would be reliant on daylight to help grass pitches to grow and recover. So now we have artificial surfaces as well. So this is a lot at grassroots level as well. A lot of non-league football uses this as well because you can use it all weathers, as well as within the community. So you could have like youth training, and it's not going to ruin the pitch. You don't have to pay groundskeepers to look after the turf like you would a grass pitch. So there's a financial benefit there. As well, we have changing facilities, so these have improved all the way through from amateur, elite, even youth football. So these days we can have changing facilities next to pitches from non-league to amateur Sunday league clubs. This is because of a lot of funding's managed to reach into grassroots football, which has allowed sort of changing rooms to be built. We've also got in the elite game changing rooms developing massively. We're seeing like teams in the Premier League like Manchester City invest like 300 million, 400 million in their training facilities as well as their stadiums. We also see advertising boards. So before we would have been using sort of the wooden boards, so static sort of advertisements. Now we've got electric boards, so we're allowed to increase more income as our adverts can change throughout the game. It means we can have more adverts. We're not limited to just one per board. This also means that like betting companies, for example, can pay more to put live sort of odds on their advertising boards. So during televised fixtures, this can help increase income for clubs. As well, most modern stadiums these days have big screens, so big screens can relay in-game stats, replays, halftime entertainment, as well as making the facility a multi-use venue. So for example, football stadiums in the off-season can be used as a like a concert venue, for example. We also see retractable roofs and undersoil heating, their development. So especially retractable roofs, this began in the Millennium Stadium and then was rolled out across Wembley and Wimbledon, which we'll go in more detail about. Also, recovery chambers is another facility. So in most modern stadiums these days, you'll get ice baths or recovery chambers. So this is going to help aid elite athletes' recovery, not so much at grassroots level. So looking more into retractable roofs, one of the first stadiums to feature this was the Millennium Stadium. So it's now known as the Principality Stadium. It cost 121 million and was opened in 1999. It's a multifunctional stadium, so it's used for football matches, rugby, cup finals, community events, concerts, and the roof allows for all-weather play. It helps to maintain the pitch condition and improve atmospheres as well. So Wimbledon and Wembley were to follow with their retractable roofs. So while Wembley sees the benefits in football events similar to the Millennium Stadium, the functionality and practicality of the retractable roof over the centre court in Wimbledon adds value to the tournament. This is because it's a short tournament over a matter of weeks, therefore it's a tight schedule, and therefore we have to maintain pitch condition in order to ensure games are played on time and following the structure that's laid out by the tournament committee. The roof wasn't originally built on centre court. It was implemented in 2009, and in its first use, and as in previous years, rain delayed the tournament, and this combined with the busy annual schedule of the elite tennis players meant that their training schedules didn't allow them enough time for recovery before the next tournament. So moving on, we're looking at sort of equipment in football. So for example, we're looking at balls. So there were more panels on the ball these days. There was 32 panels back in 1962. Igor Nilsson created this ball. Since then, we've created 24 and 42 panel balls. The 24 panel ball increased spin, while the 42 improved stability. FIFA rules allowed this for professional balls. Also, our sort of training equipment. So training equipment has come down a lot in regards to football, and most sports as well. So amateur athletes can now afford things like ladders, cones, basic equipment like that, which can help improve players. This is because there's been more investment in sports science, meaning some of the elite sportsmen who have access to recovery chambers and some of the more specialised gyms and training equipment has meant that the basic equipment previously used by the elite athletes can now be accessed for a cheaper price by amateur athletes. Also shin pads, so these can also now be made out of carbon fibre, fiberglass and foam rubber, makes them lightweight, strong and robust as well. Goalkeeping gloves, so we now have finger saves and grip. So finger saves stop the glove from bending back, can help prevent injury for goalkeepers. Also Hawkeye, so we now have Hawkeye in the Premier League. That was implemented in 2015. It uses cameras to generate a 3D picture of the playing field, so it knows when the ball has crossed the line, and it tells the referee through a watch. This is currently in the Premier League, lately in the latest season of the Championship, however not in lower leagues. So we have to think here about cost. It's obviously expensive to install, but once it's installed, it's just maintenance. But we also need to consider how this improves the game. Obviously, you can't argue with the technology if the ball has crossed the line or not, but some may say this is going to affect sort of the human element and excitement of the competition in football. So moving on, we're looking at sort of footwear. So with footwear, the first football boot was manufactured in 1830, which weighed 500 grams and it was made of leather, so it doubled in weight when wet. So football boots have developed significantly since. So if we look below, you can see sort of a history of 20 years of the football boot. So if you look at 1994 Adidas Predator, we're looking at sort of again a leather boot. Then we're moving into 1998, we're sort of seeing a synthetic leather being used now. It's first sort of look at turning boots into a plastic sort of material. But we see technology increasing mainly in the sole plate here, so we see something called the first speed boot, so this is the layout of studs. Then in 2002 we have a one-piece upper, so this is called a night skin, so this is again their blend of sort of leather and synthetic plastics. Then again 2006 we see the first ever laceless boot, so technology's moved on and we're trying new things, so we've gone to a laceless boot. 2008 we're looking at sort of weight again, so these are super light, 185 grams, so compared to our first boot at 500 grams of leather, our synthetic plastics, which is now making up the complete of this boot, has allowed us to reach under 200 grams in weight, so we've more than halved our weight on the football boot. The thinking behind that is it's going to help us to run faster, sprint quicker in game. In 2010, again, weight has reduced in normal football boots as well. We're not just looking at speed boots here. we're looking at in general, we're looking at the weight of boots coming down. So in 2010, 50s come down to 156 grams. So it's getting lighter again. We've lost 40 grams of weight on the previous Nike boot. And in 2013, we get a 99 gram boot. So again, weight's being looked at here, and it's classed as the lightest boot in the world. And then our latest one in 2014 is our first released Nike fully knitted boot. So again, we're looking at a different material. So we've moved from our sort of leather to synthetics, and we've reduced the weight over the 20 years with synthetics, and we've got to 99 grams. So the manufacturers have realized that's the lightest we're going to be able to make this boot, and have therefore looked at other avenues to make the boot even lighter, and found that the knit is going to give them the best results. So as you can see, technology in boots have sort of been looking at the weight, the lace position. So as you can see, we start off with laces down the center, and then eventually we're moving to laces that are going sort of off center down the side of the boots, give us a clean strike zone. Our uppers have changed from leather to synthetics. Also our stud position, they're constantly changing, developments are being made, experimenting what the best stud plate pattern is to give stability. And also our lockdown of the boot, so the different upper materials and also the lace placement is going to help give us different upper lockdown feels. In most recent technology developments, we've seen boots become more of a fashion sort of statement. We see a lot of sponsorships with top elite players. For example, Neymar, Rooney has always been a Nike ambassador wearing the latest Nike boots. Harry Kane, one of the latest Premier League strikers, they all wear their Nike boots, and Nike try and make money from implementing fashion into their boot style. So not just the practicality is being looked at, we're now looking at sort of fashion in sport. So as you can see with these boots, these are the Nike color changing boots. So they go from a black when cold, and then once the boot becomes warm through heat from the feet, they turn a glowing orange color. So as you can see from the video, once the boot begins cold and is black, and as heat is added through the hairdryer in this example, you can see the boot changing colour. And there's the example of the two. So that's an example of how technology has helped develop sort of fashion into sports materials such as that are used on the boot. So we're looking at sort of the impacts of this, so social, so marketing. So we're sort of looking at rich and poor. Is a poor person, not a poor person, but sort of someone on low income going to be able to afford boots like these, whereas a rich person may be able to afford them? But is that going to aid their performance as it is more of a fashion statement? Also the models of boots, so marketing has changed the way we see our boots. We always see the most expensive ones as the better option. However, there is a range of boots normally starting from around £25 all the way up to £160 for the dearest boots. So we need to think about the social impact of that. Also ethical, so like the materials we're using. For example, there is issues with kangaroo leather. Also the modern day demographic of players, as well as sponsorships. Is it fair that players are receiving these boots for free and the general public are having to pay ridiculous amounts of money to get the boots they see their favourite players wear on TV? And also the legal impact, so fair marketing. Does the boot last? Does it do what it says it does? Also, can it withstand in all weather? We're seeing new materials such as knits. That might be okay on Premier League pitches that are like carpets, maintained daily by the hour. Progress reports are reported in documents. However, when your average player on a Sunday morning turns up to a game in his knitted boots, do they last on a muddy pitch? So again, sort of looking at the advertising and sponsorship of this. So social, again, sort of the players' lifestyles, their income, their popularity and performance needs to be considered, as well as media. So TV, Twitter, YouTube, players are more accessible, means their lifestyle is being observed much closer. Also ethical, so the TV can stop inspiration of young fans. For example, if a child wants to watch the Champions League, they're going to have to make sure their parents are paying their BT Sport monthly fee, probably around £40 a month, which is quite expensive. So this can stop some people from being able to access some games that they may see as inspiration to help them become the next future athlete. This goes for the same as things like F1, for example, which has fully been taken over by Sky. You don't see any of it on normal TV. So again, it's broadening across all areas. For example, financial ways, the Champions League was bought by BT Sport for 897 million. When you compare this to Uganda, their average person in Uganda earns about $600 a year. So when you consider how much football TV rights just for one competition is being bought for, it makes it a bit ridiculous to see those figures together. Also legal. So again, fair marketing. Does the product do what it says it does? And all weather. So looking at Hawkeye, we want to look at sort of the social, ethical and legal impacts. So social, fairness, so you kind of can't argue with Hawkeye, it's sort of a fact. Uses technology to say whether the ball's crossed the line or not. However, some may say it's fairer, but some may lose enjoyment of the fact that the referee has full control of the game. There's a human element throughout the game, from the manager, the team and the officials. Now we're sort of implementing technology and taking away a little bit of responsibility from the human referee, so this may mean that some fans lose enjoyment. Also ethical, so what's next? Are we going to lose referees completely? And also the price and availability of the products. So like I said, Hawkeye is only in the top 2 divisions in England, Premier League and Championship. Is this going to affect players in lower leagues like League 1, League 2, and the financial impact on lower league teams? With fairness, they may lose a number of points in the season where human error occurs. They may feel it's unfair that they can't afford the technology that the higher teams in the higher divisions can. Also legal, so we're having to adapt the rules to implement this new technology and make sure that FIFA approve the new technology, and therefore we need the funding and commissioning to do so. We're also looking at performance tech, so has it helped or hindered? So strength and conditioning, we're looking at research, physical development. Strength and conditioning has come on a lot in the most recent 20 years. Elite Sports has pushed strength and conditioning a lot, looking at sort of the research of how to develop athletes and how to increase physiological aspects of a player, such as jumping or power, that you would like to improve. For example, you might have a tall forward, centre forward, who's maybe 6'4", however he's not very good at jumping, and it may be something you want, so your strength and conditioning coaches will be able to help develop that. Sports science teams will be able to research, again, development and make plans, as well as tracking. So they'll be able to track your players in training. Again, what lower league teams will not be able to do is afford this sort of tracking information. So again, player development may be hindered. Cameras, so data analysis and collection software. So we can now collect loads of data on distance covered by players. We can also use it to analyze performance. So we can take players into a room analyse one-to-one or as a team what we're doing well and what could be improved. Also injury prevention, so things like the stat sports, we can use that to track how far a player has run in a game, how far they're running in training, and if they're running too much, say there's a limit of 30 miles in a week, we can ensure that a player gets rest maybe on a Friday before a match day to ensure of injury prevention. And also normative data, so due to all this technology in sports science, we have tested hundreds and thousands of athletes, and we can now collate this data, and amateur athletes can now compare their results from tests to their elite athletes and see how they're doing and where they can make improvements to become better in their sport. So our tracking technologies include GPS, heart rate, fitness testing, and Prozone, which is a brand of fitness analysis. So looking at injury prevention, in research done by Bourdon et al., looking at monitoring athletes' training loads. So it looks at data in sports institutions on the use of GPS tracking as well as strength and conditioning programs on fatigue, load and injury risk. So the findings were there was a sweet spot and danger zone assessed through fatigue scores. So the amount of exercise equaled a score risk. For example, a distance he'd covered in training rules him out of a game Saturday as unfit, shows injury. So if a player is out of that sweet zone in the danger risk through training, they'll have to sit out on that Friday session and get some recovery before the match day. They found that players in the danger zone were more likely to get injured on a match day than those in the sweet spot. So we also use things like stat sports. So Richard Byrne, the head of business development at StatSports, explains how it works. So basically, StatSports is a function. Its function is to collect all of players' data performance. Byrne tells Sky Sports it means that basic things like distance covered and running speed is analysed, but also in-depth metrics they have developed as well, such as step balance and stress loads, can really help integrate details on performance, fitness and well-being. So we can see if someone's generating more power through their left than their right, and maybe we need to work on increasing power and strength in that right leg to even out the balance and help reduce the injury risk. So we can see here a lot of players, they'll wear it in the form of sort of like a vest. The vest will sit underneath the playing shirt, and it will be under a soft pad at the top of the back. This is used in football, rugby, lots of team sports where there's more than sort of a handful of players on the pitch at a time, so we can analyse a large amount of data at once. This can be accessed in game as well, so your sports scientists can be up in the stands and communicate down to the manager's team that maybe a player has covered minimal distance that would be expected in the last sort of 10-20 minutes and may indicate sort of an injury risk that could occur, and therefore make the manager make a substitution to prevent any damage to that player. So as a Northern Ireland based company, StatSports, it was established in 2007 and it's now used by top clubs including Barcelona and Man City, as well as Bayern Munich. So the key, like I said, is a visor pod that sits between the shoulder blades and can work during matches as well as training to collect key data. And that's my references for this assignment.